so I am the facts and figures lady. So I'm going to tell you that Alzheimer's disease is now the most expensive disease in the United States. That came from the CDC in April. So we're facing a disease that is really going to cripple our country more than it already is. So, and that's why we're here. We're working very hard to raise funds, raise awareness, so we make sure this disease, we find a cure, we find a preventative method, so we can get rid of it. So I thank you for being here. And once again, I want to encourage you to come out tomorrow for the walk. And I know I've had lots of people tell me, I do not do the walk. You know, I don't walk. But I can't tell you how important it is to come out and be there. Because again, when people come out, the media take notice, our politicians take notice. When our politicians take notice, they increase funding for research, and that's how we do it. Right now, the U.S. government has funded research at $500 million, and that's a drop in the bucket. The Alzheimer's Association raised $300 million this past year, so we're still under $1 billion. You know, and other wonderful diseases are wonderful in the fact that they're finding cures and preventative methods. AIDS. They have been able to find a preventative method for AIDS, and that is because they're getting $5–6 billion. We need to be up there. We need to be getting $6 billion a year or more to find a cure. And that's why we need people to come out. You don't have to walk, but be there so we can have those numbers to show that we care about finding a cure. Lastly, in your folder, there was a sign-in form and a survey. I can't ask you enough to please fill those out. Turn them into anybody who's wearing shirts that look like this. And especially the survey, they're anonymous. You do not have to put your name on it. But please fill it out. We need those to be able to continue having symposiums like this, to be able to get the funding to do this, to provide all those meals for you because we want to keep you eating, especially this gentleman here who likes his cake. But again, thank you so much for coming out today. Is there any questions?
Sign-in form, fill it out.
Yes, please fill out the sign-in form, as I said, in the survey. Does anybody have any questions?
¿Cómo te llamas?
Okay. My name is Meg. You would like to speak Spanish now?
Speak Spanish?
Not well.
Un poquito.
Very little, you're all right.
Yes, yes.
And I hope you were able to meet some of our staff as well. I know you heard Jenny talk, who has been with the association 12 years, just had her 12th year anniversary, and she is amazing. And she oversees all our programming and our advocacy. So she deals with all the politicians, lucky her. But, and then you probably got to see Belinda, who was running back and forth, and she oversees our San Antonio walk, which we just had about 2 weeks ago, where we had 3,000 people come out for our San Antonio walk. And we raised $200,000. So I want to see Corpus beat San Antonio, and I expect it next year. But we had a great group of people. Thank you so much. And again, we have an employee based in Corpus now, Eliseo Chavez. His card is on the table. He's running around the building here. So again, if you want anything in the Corpus area, he is living here and he is here to answer your questions. Just grab his card on the table. So thank you, and I enjoyed meeting all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For us, because this seems to be a mixed group. Oftentimes in our field, we're limited to speaking to other healthcare professionals. And so we end up speaking a certain language or focusing on more narrow topics. So maybe it would help me in understanding who you folks are. What sort of information are you guys looking for when it comes to talking about ethics today?
and nurse. So right now I'm just retired.
So you've seen a lot, however, working both the social services and the medical side. An incredibly rich experience.
Yeah. So whatever you talk, big busy.
You're right there, quite gracious. And for you?
I'm the executive director at Villa South Assisted Living, and we have a secured Alzheimer's unit.
Okay, I think we have probably
Yes,
spoken
we
about
have,
some
yes, we
before.
have done some interaction with you guys.
Excellent, and we're so grateful. Assisted living serves such an important segment of our population. A good
Yeah.
connection to have. And
And
you
I'm a local native from Corpus Christi. I'm retired and I came just because I want to be on.
Just your file say that it's
I'm also certified social worker, but I'm not working.
okay, so that idea of keeping your knowledge base expanding, whether you're retired or not, that's something we value. And you, sir?
I'm with Caring Senior Service. I came here just to kind of learn a little bit more. I just started with this company back in July, but before I worked 5 years for another healthcare company, but it was more skilled pediatric care. And now I'm kind of switching over to non-skilled adult care. I wanted to try to get some more information as much as I can. That way I can be a better resource to our clients and our workers.
Sure, and I think you'll find that when it comes to pediatric and the elderly, there are some pieces that overlap, and some of that is informed consent, which we'll go over today, because it's the idea of the person isn't able to speak for themselves. They may not be fully comprehending what they're agreeing to. Hopefully you can offer some support in that. You, sir?
I'm a residential service coordinator here in Corpus. Myself and the other coordinator, she stepped out, but we service right around 100 seniors. And so we just felt the symposium would be great, and our dealings with the elderly. We've already, had experience with at least 3 or 4 residents that have beginning stage Alzheimer's or dementia. And then my grandma had Alzheimer's as well.
Okay. So you're in that segment of the population that's expanding, which is, you see it both professionally and personally.
Right.
So you recognize that there's a fatigue that can go into it being the caregiver, and as the professional trying to manage some of those behaviors. Yeah. And also though, if you're working with 100+ seniors, you still represent that there's only a small population that is getting Alzheimer's. Yes, that population is expanding. However, we do have seniors that have vibrant, active lives. And so we'll be touching on that too, wanting to also recognize that independence, that vibrance that comes with old age is very much an important aspect of 70.
That's what we do. We basically just link them through education funds to outside community networks to help enhance their lives and keep them living on their own and independent as long as they possibly can.
That's
It's
something
very interesting.
that is so inspiring. It can be tricky to line up those resources. So hopefully by increasing that awareness, we're able to connect more people together. So, you ma'am?
I guess you could call me a retired social worker, gone back to work.
Okay.
Currently, I'm contracting with Area Agency on Aging, and my title is Care Coordination. So I go out in the community and see if applicants are eligible for provider services, home delivered meals, etc. And I love my work, so I went back to it.
Okay, so you're one of those agencies that we all like to stay in touch with as far as keeping independence
Absolutely.
as long as possible.
I cannot say enough about their office, Area Agency on Aging. They have a library, they have benefits counselors, ombudsmen, and it's all free to the public. So
I'm retired. I also have a background in nursing, and I was currently a social worker for the last 20 years, and always in acute care, hospital work.
So again, you've seen a lot, so many things have crossed your path. So keeping your skills current.
It's
So,
important.
yes ma'am. Yes ma'am. So as I appreciate you guys orienting who the audience is, because in such a small gathering, I want to encourage you at any time to raise raise your hand, and if you have a comment or a question, please share it. Groups like this, when we have the luxury of an intimate group, it's as rich as you guys make it. So I know they're continuing to secure this. I think it's so ironic that the very thing that we broke leading up to our presentation is a memory stick.
Amazing grace.
Amazing grace,
So this is
right?
turned on now.
I think that's an important part of any aspect of our field. And again, touching on some of us have encountered different forms of dementia in our private lives with our family members, is a memory really is a difficult thing to replace.
Okay, so Fawn, thank you.
Good stuff.
Getting us started. We are talking today about ethical challenges in caring for older adults. So before we get started addressing some of those challenges, some of our topics, and then having some discussion, I'm going to run a clip because I think this is very appropriate.
Is there a way to dim a set of lights or?
If it lets us play it. I don't think it's going to let us play it.
You double click it.
It may not let us play it. We have, Fawn's familiar with the show. Fawn, the name of it.
There's a show called Raising Hope. Has anyone seen that?
Raising Hope comes out on Fox. And there is a character played by Cloris Leachman, who has been around since the Mary Tyler Moore Show. She plays a character that is living at home currently with her adult daughter and son and grandchild. And she has dementia. So in this episode that I tried to put up that we can't see, I'm not sure what the lights are.
Are we able to minimize it and just pull up YouTube?
Yeah, we can bring up YouTube.
She's presenting to her family a tray of cookies, and the cookies were made with probably not all articles of food. I don't think there was flour involved, so it's kind of a mess of stuff. And daughter is telling her husband and her kids, just go along with it, eat the cookies. She made them as she's dressed in an apron and nothing underneath. So they're living with mom who has dementia, who they're kind of saying, just go along with it. This is what we live with. And there's some humor involved, and it's really funny. So let's see if we can find that. Google Leachman interview show.
There's this family who's never cared for a baby before. The original parents are now about 35 years old, who are now grandparents at 35. They had their little boy when they were 15 years old. And, and they didn't know how to raise a baby, of course. And they still don't. And so it's trying to raise this baby named Hope. The thing that touches my heart in this is what true sweetness is. True sweetness. Well, that's sweet, that's sweet. This young man has a sweetness in himself, and he brings this when he's trying to take care of his baby or have his baby understand him or trying to figure out what's going on with the baby. The sweetness in him and between him and this little baby, it's so touching, it's so disarming. You don't expect it in a
So I'm going to stop it there because
situation comedy.
this is obviously it's showing her quite lucid.
And the kind of
She's
it's,
you may not know, but she is 84 years old, and working on this show, she puts in 12-hour days at times. And she talks about how she absolutely loves it. Let's see if it'll, I was trying to see what the actual title is. But again, she's 84, does these shifts, 12 hours at a time. We know that she's a pro, she's been at this. However, what she says is about the director, that she absolutely loves the freedom he gives her to portray dementia. She says there's times where she's, again, the cookie episode, I wish we'd be able to show that, where she's serving up dirt and rocks, and the family's trying to support her, and the daughter is saying to the husband, just eat it, it's not going to be that bad going down. Humor her, it's the holidays. And many of our families go through that idea of, okay, let's stay independent, or at what point do we transition to assisted living, or even the inpatient stabilization, because we recognize we're able to redirect them and support them to a point, but it might go too far. And we've had cases in our hospital where families have brought their loved ones to us because it's not so much the dirt and the rocks as much as the bleach cap was off. And we're getting nervous that they're going to do something with antifreeze or bleach. There's another segment in the video where she's actually just sitting there licking her beans. And she has this fantastic smile on her face. And she said that she appreciates that the director lets her have that freedom because dementia is so varied. And there's times where people do have lucidity, but then they fade away. And so that can greatly affect the family's perception of what is real and how to adjust that support.
And then the ethical question, they're leaving, there's a scene where they're leaving the church, and grandma's ahead of them, and they've got her on a short leash. They've got her, they're hanging on to grandma, and grandson is saying, Ma, do you think hanging on to Mima like that is appropriate? Well, it's better than losing her. So that puts out the question, how do we care for our elderly, older adults in our community in a way that we offer them the dignity and respect that they deserve? So the show just offers a lot of, insight into, wow, this is a picture of dementia and a type of dementia. So we'll go on to the next slide. What are ethics? What are ethics? How do we define ethics? And so for us, it would be what's considered good or right for a specific group of people. And for us, it's working with older adults, working with the elderly. So finding out a little bit more about that. Topics to be addressed.
So today we're going to be covering briefly consent and why it's important. And it sounds like from the experiences I've heard here, most of you are working within an agency or a hospital setting that has had that set parameter in place.
Then we have confidentiality, keeping in mind that we always have to be aware of what our clients and our patients want us to keep confidential, because they certainly deserve that confidentiality. They are being cared for perhaps by family members, but if they ask you to keep something confidential, that's where an ethical dilemma might take its place, where we ask, well, is this something that we really should keep away from the doctor, or should we share? We have to respect that elder adult's confidentiality.
And independence, which you folks have all touched on in some manner, that idea of people want to be healthy, they want to be able to stay as active as they can for as long as they can.
So that addresses
the beneficence versus autonomy. So the good that we're doing, the intervention we're offering, what is the risk to that? How might that take away some of that independence?
And then we have to address the culture part of it, because there are cultures in our community, in our society, where, I am taking care of grandma, I'm taking care of my mother. There is no possible way I'm putting grandma into a nursing home or assisted living. That's my responsibility. So addressing those issues when we're working with that family and trying to get them through that and through their culture and how that affects, caring for our elderly adults. So we'll start with consent. Why is it important? older adults have a right to consent or refuse treatment. However, there are provisions for patients who are with us and our geriatric unit who are there involuntarily. They don't want to be there, so they reach out, get a warrant, get them to our hospital so they can receive the care they need. And so when do we do that? When do we get warrants? When they're a danger to themselves or to others. That's really important that we're aware of that you as their caregivers and providers are aware of that. That maybe they have specific mental disorders that is going to warrant getting some help for this individual. And then, of course, dementia-related issues, which you are familiar with. So we have an example. I'll read it out and you guys kind of discuss it for a bit. In regards to consent, an elderly gentleman with dementia is voluntary patient of the hospital. The gentleman doesn't wish to take any medications offered by the nurses because he doesn't feel comfortable taking medications from people that he doesn't know. And this is something we get a lot when we get our patients on the geriatric unit. Given his state of confusion, the gentleman does not wish to speak about his memory issues with the staff. So giving you guys a couple minutes, think about this. How would you address this ethical dilemma? Doesn't want to take meds. We want to offer him respect. They deserve that. But also, we also know that this patient needs some support. So kind of think it over for a bit and then we'll move forward. I'll give you a minute, 30 seconds.
So you ladies, I know those of you who are nurses have encountered this. So what are some ways that you work with them?
We have to be a family member involved.
Absolutely, that happens a lot on our geriatric unit where the nurse, the charge nurse is saying, okay, Mr. Rodriguez, take your medicine, and then he refuses, and it's been all day. Visitation is coming around. Good idea. Family member comes on board, it's daughter, it's son. They know how to communicate with mom and dad in such a way that they may be able to do that. So communicating with family is excellent idea.
Sometimes it's just a different staff member and how they approach it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes we have a couple of people, and it's funny, in our facility that they have days where they won't take medication for the med aids, but if I walk back there and they see me, they'll say, oh yeah, I remember you, and I'll say, well, you know what, I have a couple, okay, and they'll take them.
That's
So
right.
sometimes it just depends on who approaches them and gets somebody else to approach them.
That's right. And that involves a lot of the staff building rapport with that individual.
Yeah.
Building that relationship at the hospital. So, in this scenario, what was the ethical course of action? We had some ideas, talking to family, maybe if they're involved in their care, building that rapport, finding that helper that is able to, assist with that. Should the gentleman be forced to take their medication? No, absolutely not. We had an individual on our unit, when Dr. Barrera was still with us, we had a 65-year-old schizophrenic woman who refused to take her medication. She was putting herself in danger, putting her family in, putting herself in harm's way, for sure. Refused her medication. We couldn't force the medicine. We could not give her an injection without her consent. So she ended up with us for quite a while, and we had to move to the next step. But that we cannot force the person to take medication.
I thought they could enforce it. They could enforce it if there was a medical emergency. Like I worked on it in a psychiatric. Well, that's possibly different.
It is different. It's a medical emergency. This particularly was a psych issue. So
Yeah, when I was a psych issue, I worked on because I was on a psych unit.
So that's where what we did with her was we proceeded with court commitment. So that's where we took, because she was, her husband was elderly, couldn't get involved, and he was much older than her. So that's where we proceeded with taking her to court, and the judge could see that she really did need help, so we needed to move to the next level of care.
I mean, I probably just missed it. So.
Oh, no, that's okay.
I know once we got the doctor's orders, they'd always give them 5 and 2s, how long out of them, injections.
But she was gonna, she was a challenge. She was one of our challenges. Should the staff try to convince the gentleman to tell more about his current status when he's in a confused state? I see a lot of nods. Why not? Why shouldn't he?
They usually get agitated or more confused and then resist more.
And you said something.
Agitate.
Yes, yes. Yes.
Worse, you can start believing it.
Or worse, they could start believing. Okay. Confidentiality.
So why is confidentiality important? Have you guys encountered this in any of your situations? What have you?
I have a younger woman that lives in our facility, and actually her brother came in and wanted a copy of her medication list and doctor reports and stuff, but she's her own power of attorney. And so I could not give it to him, and I spent an hour explaining to him HIPAA laws and everything else. He actually turned me into state for not releasing the records that he wanted, but I couldn't do it. She had her right to keep her information confidential.
Right, and I'm sure during that course of that, because we have some of those situations too, that's where we go to the talk about guardianship. Well, if you have guardianship, then I'd be able to help you in a completely different manner.
Right,
However,
but
being
she's
your own
totally,
person-
I mean, she doesn't have Alzheimer's. She is well enough that she can take, she pays her own bills, she takes care of herself. But he just wanted to take some control over the sister. And so, I mean, he just couldn't do it and got upset and called state and complained for resident rights and medications, you know, which was unfounded, but still, you know, you have to be very careful. I have, you know, like right now, I've got a daughter that has guardianship. The mother wanted the list of meds. So I can't do that. I know, you know, you're the wife, but your daughter has the guardianship, so you have to be very careful who you give the information to.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
And remembering too that when families are in this emotionally distraught, they are more likely to take risks. And so reminding them of what the laws are and what our limitations are is important.
So we know older adults have a right to confidentiality of treatment, choosing with whom information is shared, even family. However, there are provisions for cognitive impairment. Family may be the only source of history. So we have an example.
So a woman with Alzheimer's is being hospitalized involuntarily, so that's under that emergency detention warrant, which are all of you familiar with that? And what that criteria entails? That's okay. At a local psychiatric unit, due to her being a danger to herself, she has a family who's very involved in her care while at home. The family members do not have guardianship of the woman. The woman's daughter is seeking to know more information about her mother from the hospital staff, but the woman has not designated that any persons may have access to her medical information. So similar in ethical dilemma to what you're talking about with the lady and her brother.
What's the difference though? I mean, I think there's a difference.
Yours is an outpatient setting, yours is assisted living, ours is an inpatient setting.
Right, and she doesn't have the Alzheimer's, and that's the difference,
That's the difference.
is the cognitive.
The cognitive
yeah.
impairment, exactly. So then is it okay to say that if a person, I mean, if she has Alzheimer's, there's potential risk for to suffer others, depending on how far along her Alzheimer's, but certainly this is one of those questions where, wow, you know, what do we do? What do we do? In this scenario, what was the ethical course of action? Should family have been contacted? Would you all agree family should be contacted in this situation?
I think a family member has to know she's in the hospital.
Well, she was in on a warrant, so maybe a family member or
But
someone.
not necessarily the family member gave the warrant. I think
That's
the closest next of kin needs to be notified, because at some point, they may need to take, you know, help take action to provide her care.
Sure. Did contacting family help the patient? Possibly, yes. Yes, they were on the right track to getting help for this person who suffers Alzheimer's dementia. What steps can be taken to provide the woman with the best care possible? What can we do for this woman with Alzheimer's who's being treated on a warrant in a facility? what steps can be taken to provide her with the best care. Ideas?
Somebody take guardianship.
Somebody take power of screen, guardianship. Part of it falls back then on us staff, which is educating the family on the idea that this isn't anything that we can cure. We don't have a magic pill to make it go away. It's more along the lines of finding out what the current baseline is, and then if guardianship is necessary, moving forward.
Keeping in mind and giving information to our family members who are involved with the patients that guardianship does take some time. So there's work involved and, of course, depending on how long the patient is going to be hospitalized and such. So making sure that we offer them the appropriate resources that they need to get what they need to help their family member. Okay, independence.
So independence, and it's wonderful to have somebody here from the area on aging, because this is right up your alley, isn't it? Okay. So
Why is it important? Go ahead.
Well, you've got she's got the prompts. So that idea of, you guys know it though. And so much of this, that American dream is living independent. They still want their car keys. They still want access to the cleaning products. They still want to be able to go get the pet food and feel like they're competent in something. So having that autonomy. So again, we go back to that concept of risk-benefit analysis, hoping an intervention is always going to alter something. And sir, you working in a psych hospital when you were talking about meds and stuff a minute ago, you've seen that. Most of you here have seen firsthand that an intervention is going to affect something. So which way are we going with that intervention? And finding themselves struggling to manage. And I'm wondering if you guys have experienced what Liz and I have, which is working with family members that the patient's given, or the outpatient setting, they've given permission to talk to families. So we're talking at the store with family, and then family says, but they still get to drive, right? I don't have to be the one to take away the keys, right? And we say, well, keys are an interesting issue. So that idea of walking them through when independence becomes more of a danger.
We actually recently, and this is an example, we actually had a couple struggling to cope with the increasing symptoms of dementia that the husband was demonstrating and health issues that she had. He was caring for her. She was in a wheelchair. Rheumatoid arthritis, couldn't do much for herself, so he was caring for her. His dementia was progressing. APS ends up getting involved. They're accustomed to working together to accomplish daily tasks, such as driving. I said, how is the driving going? She said, I'm his eyes. I'm his eyes, and I'm telling him what to do. And he's just, manipulating the car, which was putting both of them in danger because his dementia, he couldn't remember what day it was. He was driving, and she was telling him where to go. So the wife has become more and more concerned with her husband's condition and is seeking help. So what do we do? What's involved? In this scenario, what should they help her address with the couple?
What are some strengths that you see in this scenario?
Well, they both still want to live independently, so they need assistance, outside assistance.
Because she's still over he is the one that is losing, so the wife can give consent to receive services and the help.
And that's where some of the other agencies, like the area on aging and home health and even adult daycare, some of these other outpatient opportunities, we can plug in for both of them to help support so that there's more people involved.
And in this particular case, we actually did have adult protective services involved because they had no family, they had no children, they never had children. Throughout their marriage, it was the two of them. So we needed to involve another resource to help get them where they needed to be and get the help they needed. And they did get the help that they needed. Assess the decision making. Is there a danger posed by reduced cognitive functioning? How would the couple best be served? It was a challenge, that case was a challenge, but I think in the end, we got them where they needed to be. So culture.
So why is culture important? What are some of the experiences you folks have had regarding that? The importance of culture as we age.
I've had an experience different because I'm from up north in the Midwest, and moving down here, and the Hispanic culture down here is so much different than what I dealt with up in Illinois, because we're closer to the Mexican border. And that was a hard thing for me to deal with, is some of the different cultures down here and the different way they do things than what we did up in the north. It makes a difference where, not only if they live in Texas, but did they come down from another part of the country, and what were their cultural beliefs in those countries? Not only their ethnical beliefs, but also where they were raised, what those beliefs are. So sometimes that can be challenging.
Sure.
So a defining factor in personal and communal identity, and I think something that we've seen, and I'm not from here, so I can say that being naive, when I was younger, I would think, oh, this population or this ethnic group acts like this everywhere.
Yeah.
But coming from the West and coming here, even my own culture has shifted, and so something that we've seen on our Gero unit is how much the family will appreciate traditions and cultures and want to hang on to that even as that family member is slipping away, they still want to hold on to what is true and real for them. And so the making of the certain meals, the celebrating of certain traditions is the way that the family appreciates each other, even in the midst of these struggles.
I noticed down here a lot more family members. I mean, it's not just one or two that wants to sit with the loved one. It is, the spouse, the children, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren. It is, everybody is in that room, to be there. And I just think it's wonderful. It's very touching to see the different way the cultures.
Nieces and nephews and.
Yeah, everybody.
Everybody.
Yeah, but it's touching. It's what they do.
So that helps dictate what course of action we take. And sometimes we've even had to filter it down where we might have 15 people in the hallway wanting to do visitation hours, and yet our unit is limited to X amount of people. So they'll come in shifts. And so we still accommodate it, we still welcome it, and I'm sure you folks have experienced that in different ways too. There's these opportunities to then adapt our treatment plan to better serve that family. And also recognizing too, may not be agreeable with the best course of action. It's amazing how in some of our Gero population, some of the old unfinished business with certain family members might bubble up to the top. And so then we'll have these opportunities to say, well, that's something that you guys can take care of at home on your own. That's not anything we're going to address right now while your loved one's in our care. And indeed, that culture changes over time and over geography too.
And here's just another example. Local Hispanic families facing challenges with the matriarch of the family, having increasing age-related health issues. Her failing eyesight, joint discomfort is making her less able to take proper care of her home. So some of her family members are concerned that soon she's going to be unable to care for her own needs as well. So the family's in a quandary currently because they're concerned for her well-being. But every time they broach the subject of her needing help, the matriarch becomes offended and demands they leave her alone. And that has happened in my family recently. Our grandmother who is, I will stay at home, this is my home, I built this home. It's been a while, but now she's with, living with my parents. And so it took a bit to get there, but she now acknowledges that she does need help. So that's a challenge, it presents a challenge. In this scenario, how can it help or assist the family in making the best choices for their family member? For my family, it was the doctor saying she can't be alone anymore. She fell. So, somebody saying that, she heard that, okay, I surrender, I'll get some help. Assessing the needs of individual and family, educating the family, and helping to make a collaborative decision with the family and the individual. One of my most favorite characters. I don't know if you guys know, but STGEC actually had Lewy body dementia. And she died before she was 84, 85. I can't remember the age, but some of the people that she starred with in the Golden Girls, I think it was the gal that played B. Arthur, the one who played Dorothy. She said as she looked back, before she died, as she looked back, she did remember that she did present forgetfulness on the set. And so she was constantly reminded of her lines. So when they first diagnosed her, they thought it was Alzheimer's dementia. First they said dementia, then they said Alzheimer's. It ended up being that she passed due to symptoms related to Lewy body dementia. And Sophia is one of my favorite characters, so I do want to find that on YouTube, because we have to remember that our people that we work with offer us a lot of wisdom and a lot of information, a lot of good stories, and she gave us that by, watching her on the Golden Girls, if any of you ever watched that.
Saturday and Sunday morning, that's what I cannot do anything until I see my Golden Girls.
And what's amazing too is now that phrase Golden Girl houses is popping up. NPR did a report with the idea that single women are saying, I'm looking for alternatives to assisted living, whether it's
Sophia, are you busy? No, I'm just drawing a line on the milk and magnesia bottle. My, I think the gardener's been sneaking a few sips. I have a problem. All right, take a sip, I'll draw another line. No, it's not that. My boss at the center made a pass at me. Maybe you misunderstood. What exactly did he do? He called me in his office and threw me down on the couch and kissed me. That's a pass. Okay, I think I can help you. I'll tell you a story, Rose. Picture it. Sicily, 1922. Sophia, I have a problem. I just saw the guy I've been dating out with another woman. Now, what do you think I ought to do? I think you should sit down and picture Sicily, 1922. It was the worst of times. It was the worst of times. It was Sicily, 1922.
Oh, Mom, I have a problem.
Just sit down and listen. First of all, is everyone who lives in this house here at this very moment?
Yes.
Then for the last time, picture it. Sicily, 1922. A beautiful young woman with breasts not unlike Brigitte Nielsen, except hers moved when she skipped. She comes walking down a picturesque country road when suddenly a yellow Rolls Royce pulls up and blocks her path. Oh, who was in the Rolls? Robert Goulet, for all I know. It's not important to the story. Anyway, the Rolls Royce moves on, and the girl finds her pepperoni is missing. What happened to it, Sophia? Bambi ate it. How should I know? You keep missing the point. The important thing is, she has no pepperoni to bring to her family's table. She gets hysterical. She starts to run. She runs through the field, the meadow, over the hill, until she comes to a raging river filled with pepperoni swimming upstream.
Pepperoni swimming upstream.
Yeah, I know it's odd. Pepperoni is a land meat, but there it was. She wades into the river, grabs an armful, and races home to feed her family. When she tells them the story, they think it's an act of God. But as it turned out, a disgruntled pepperoni stuffer had blown up the factory in a neighboring town, causing pepperoni to rain down over 100 square miles, which is where the old Sicilian saying, it's raining cats and pepperoni, comes from. Is this helping anyone yet? Because this sure feels like an ending to me. Oh, it's helping me, Sophia. What I got out of the story was that I should take a bad situation and make it better. I'm going to tell my boss all. That's not quite what I got out of it, Sophia. I thought you were trying to tell me to dump my cheating boyfriend because there's lots of pepperoni in the sea. Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to tell you. Thank you, Sophia. How about you, Dorothy? Did I help you with your problem?
Sure did, Mom. I didn't know what to have for dinner. How about splitting a pepperoni pizza?
Sure, you buying?
Does a pepperoni swim upstream?
Did once, let's go.
Just keeping in mind that our elderly that we work with.
Sophia, are you busy? No, I'm just drawing a line on the milk and magnesia bottle.
offer us so much wisdom, so much experience in life that they deserve to be heard. They deserve to be treated with the utmost respect. And, you know, considering all the challenges that we have in working with them, they still deserve that, you know, respect and dignity because they've lived a life and they give us so much to them. That's it. Thank you. Comments, questions?
Okay. Jimmy, you want to finish?
Thank you. I like the title on the screen.
It's okay.
Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for today's conference. I know that you guys had to either miss out of work or be pulled away from what you could have done today, but instead you decided to join us today, and we just like to thank you for being part of our audience.